Hi everyone, and welcome to today's GESS Talks webinar, Navigating the Future of Education, Insights from GESS Dubai 2025 speakers. Today's webinar will provide you with an exclusive preview of the visionary leaders who will be speaking at GESS Dubai happening next month. We'll explore emerging educational trends, discover fresh perspectives, and gain early insights into the transformative conversations that will define this year's GESS Dubai event. Before we get into it, don't miss the chance to connect with global education leaders and innovators at GESS Dubai, taking place from the 11th until the 13th of November. A pop-up will now appear on your screen for you to register and secure your spot to be part of the region's leading education event. Please also do use the Q&A tab throughout for your questions during the session, and the panel will aim to address as many of these as possible. Now, I'm pleased to hand over to our moderator, Fiona McKenzie. So over to you, Fiona.
Thank you very much indeed for that comprehensive introduction. And hello, welcome everybody to this special GESS Dubai 2025 preview webinar, Navigating the Future of Education. I think we'll all agree that GESS Dubai is really well known for the thought leadership and for the kind of global conversations that we share there on innovation, well-being, transformation in learning. And today I'm really excited that we're joined by 4 of the featured speakers who are going to be lighting up the stage this November in Dubai. I think what's fabulous about our kind of guests today is that each one brings a very unique perspective on what's coming up next for education, whether it's technology or inclusion or well-being or personal transformation. So 4 very different perspectives. I'm going to do a brief little intro, and then I'm going to start by asking them all a question, and then we'll kind of go around the panel and get everybody's perspectives. And as I say, a little sneak preview of what they're going to be talking about. So today we're joined by Jeremy Dalton. He is the founder of xrhq.com, a thought leader in AI and immersive technologies. We have Dr. Salam Ashour, psychological and educational specialist at Yarmouk University, and she is an expert in inclusive education and mental health. We have Steve Bambury, who'll be joining us, who's the head of digital learning and innovation at GESS in Dubai, and he's an award-winning leader in EdTech and VR learning. And then we have Marisa, who is a world-renowned therapist, author, and founder of the Rapid Transformational Therapy, RTT. So a really fascinating range of perspectives and interests here. So I'd like to start, if I can, to begin with, by asking each of you individually, what does the phrase navigating the future of education mean to you personally, and how does it connect with your vision for the future in education? Jeremy, can I start with you? What does this year's theme mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely, Fiona. And hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me and for listening. So for me, navigating the future of education really touches upon all of the massive technological change we're seeing in society right now. And for me, especially given how focused everyone is on artificial intelligence, and the discussions we're having about how appropriate that is, how to implement it, how to manage the challenges that are associated with that, particularly in education. I think it's personally more about we're entering an age of where it's about the educators and not necessarily the students themselves, or rather it's a priority that we should place on the educators. Because given such rapid technological change, from what I've seen, younger generations tend to pick up these new technologies fairly easily. And they're the ones that are often pushing us and challenging us to think about how we respond. So in the game of cat and mice, the students are definitely the cats these days. And maybe it's always been that way, to be honest. So there needs to be a focus on the educators and less on the teaching tools and more on the teaching thinking. So how to learn, how to question, how to create using these emerging technologies, and how to ultimately be, excuse me, better stewards for students in the future of education.
That's so interesting, and I think actually that ties very nicely, because Dr. Salam, I'd like to come to you next. What does your kind of view on that, the kind of, you know, the navigating the future of education, how does that link in? Hi, Dr. Salam. Can you all hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah. Dr. Salam, how does that
Yeah,
kind
I
of,
can
after what Jeremy's just said, can Dr. Salam hear me? Maybe not.
I
Stephen,
think
which is
Dr.
can I come
Salam
to
might have
you?
just dropped at precisely the wrong
Yeah,
time.
exactly at that point.
Classic. Steve, let me move on to you instead. Can I ask you, you know, what does this year's theme about navigating the future of education mean to you in 2025 and beyond?
Breaking up very badly. I think you're asking me.
Yes, I think it was, Steve.
She seems to
The
have
same
frozen.
question.
She seems to have frozen on her side. So shall I assume that she was asking me and move ahead?
Yeah,
She
go
was
for it.
asking you. She said your name.
Lovely. Okay, I didn't even hear that bit. Right. Hello, guys. I must admit, I'm normally way more prepared for these types of things, but I've been in meetings since 7:15 this morning. Literally drove home, running, and you were already introducing everybody by the time I like logged onto the event. So apologies. I'm kind of chasing my tail a little bit. For me, you know, Jess, we used to have, it's changed slightly now, but you know, our hashtag, our slogan used to be future ready. It was all about making sure that students were future ready and prepared for the workplace of the future, which is more nebulous now than ever before. And it's a really unusual time to be working in the education space. For those that don't know me, I worked at GESS for 11 years, ultimately, as for the final 3 years, up until 2019, as head of digital learning and innovation, which was a role that was created for me. And then I left for 5 years and went off and did a load of other crazy bits and pieces, survived the COVID era. And I was asked back about 18 months ago. I've been back at school coming on for 2 years now, primarily to lead on AI. And it's such a different game. It's you know, it's such a different space to be working in now, where the you know, the future is so uncertain. I was watching something just last week with Stephen Bartlett and his guest. The name escapes me. It's the professor that works heavily in the AI safety space. He's talking about how AI is being referred to as humankind's last invention, because this is the one that we don't need any other inventions, because it can potentially do it for us. And then we're seeing so many things about the impact on the workforce and the loss of entry-level jobs post-university. And as educators, whether we're working in K-12 or in higher education, we need to recognize this, because we've got kids in our school who are 3 and 4 years old, who are going to be moving into a world that is completely different to what we've been through and what we're currently existing in. So I think that is the kind of slight sidesteppy, dodgy answer. That it's very hard to predict what the future of education is going to look like. I do think that the infrastructures and the paradigms that we have in place globally will need to change to reflect this, but until they do, we're kind of doing our best to navigate this sea of paradoxes.
And I think we might have lost our moderator and facilitator as well. But I'm
That's your job to take over then, Jeremy.
I'm assuming she would want to go to you, Marisa, for the same question.
She would. So we don't look at education. We're looking here at RTT at the child's emotional resilience. What's the self-esteem of the child in your class? I believe the job of every single school, my father was a very eminent head teacher, and he taught me that the job of every school is to raise the child's self-esteem. And if a child leaves with that high self-esteem, you have failed. And yet we don't really see that. I've just noticed here in Dubai that they're now fining schools where bullying happens, which I think is a good thing, because they're finally taking some responsibility. So RTT is about, how is a child doing emotionally? Do they have emotional resilience? You know, they've been through COVID. They live in a world of screens. They live in a world where it's no point in saying, hey, do you want to be an architect? Because when they leave school, there won't be any jobs. AI is taking pretty much everything according to them. We already see that in our world. We say, well, I'm trained to be a therapist, but isn't AI going to take my job? You know, certainty is a human need, one of the most powerful human needs. And we have children with no certainty. They're looking at wars, they're in a perma-crisis, they don't really know what's going on. And I think every school, every curriculum, quite aside from the education, must look at what is happening to this child's self-esteem. How emotionally resilient are they? Where is bullying? Are they lonely? Have they got friends? Can they speak up? You know, I love the Scandinavian system of schooling where it's very child-focused, much more so than academic results. So RTT is really looking at the stress children go through. How good are their coping skills? How do they cope with bullying? How do they cope with exam pressure? How do they cope with helicopter parents? How do they cope with, in Dubai especially, you know, I was a little boy last year who said, I don't want to make any more friends. Every friend I've had left after 2 years of school, he said, I don't want to say hello because it's too sad to say goodbye. So every 2 years, his friend left. And instead of looking at, wow, I made amazing friends every 2 years, he looked at, they just leave. And, you know, I see children and they go, oh, I've got depression. I've got anger issues. Like, no, darling, you're just having a tantrum. That's normal. But they're very into the labels. And the other thing I see, which is, what do you want to be? An influencer? I haven't met a child yet because I want to be a pilot or an architect or a doctor, a podcaster, an influencer. They're all very into social media. And I do wonder what we're doing. You know, our greatest need as humans, by the way, is to find connection and avoid rejection. And we have all these children who go home and go to their room and go to their screen. And all they're doing is finding disconnection. They're not connecting. I was recently talking to a mother who homeschooled her child about, look, this is for you. This kid is 15. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't play football. Part of the reason you go to school is to socialize and to develop good social skills. Can I talk to people? Can I be myself? Can I express myself? Can I find my heart's desire and see if I could turn that into a career? So we are creating a world of very isolated children with very limited social skills, some of them. And we believe at RTT that our job is to really fix that as much as we possibly can by giving children emotional resilience and this inner cheerleader who believes in them. And we see so many children who, especially in Dubai, they don't see their families much. They're raised by nannies, their father's working a lot. And then we see the other thing, not so much in Dubai, of boys especially who are raised by a single mother, go to school. All the teachers are female. I know it's better here in Dubai. And then find a therapist who's also female. And I call them the lost boys because they don't have good enough role models and they're very likely to get into gangs for that very reason. So really looking at what's happening to children and young people and what can we do to help.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a topical issue, isn't it? And everything that everybody has said. I think I'm back, by the way. Can everybody hear me? Just before I rabbit on. Good. You know, I think it's so interesting that we're coming at this from all the kind of different multiple perspectives. And Marisa, it's very interesting what you were saying. I was reading today about how social media is actually no longer social because it doesn't actually connect people at all. It actually separates them and kind of disconnects. But Jeremy, can we just loop back to you, please? And, you know, you've just given us at the beginning there a little bit of a glimpse of what you're going to be sharing with us at GESS Dubai. I think one of the things that really I notice when I'm visiting schools is that although schools are really excited by the kind of possibility of tech, they're also just feeling very overwhelmed by it as well. Do you have any kind of advice for them that you can share in this kind of preliminary intro session as to what you're going to sort of be able to share with leaders about how to make sustainable and really smart choices in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. So during my presentation itself at GESS, I'll be talking more from the technological side. So thinking about how emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and immersive tech is already transforming education through real world examples that are already being put into practice. So for me, I wrote a book called Reality Check many years ago. It's in its second edition now, and this concentrated on immersive technology across multiple industries, including education. And the reason, or part of the reason that I wrote it was because of this disbelief or lack of knowledge, misconceptions about technology and how it could be applied. So everybody had a very limited view on these technologies and thought, okay, it doesn't really apply. I mean, virtual realities for video gaming and entertainment doesn't really serve any purpose beyond that. I was coming across a lot of business leaders that held that perspective. So, and the best way for me to convince stakeholders of the value of technology was not to talk about the future of technology, because I find if you're looking for inspiration about, your 5-year, 10-year, 30-year plan, sure, having a futurist facing conversation can be useful if you're trying to protect, the way that you operate right now. But if you want to use technology and you want it to be beneficial for your organization, then seeing how others use this technology is incredibly valuable, because that is what gives you confidence about how it can be used globally. So one of the pieces of advice I would say based on that is to look for inspiration globally. And this is the basis for xrhq.com. So when I founded that was to provide people with how emerging technologies, specifically immersive and artificial intelligence, are being used globally right now across a range of industries, including education, with multi-filter searchability. So if you're particularly interested in, the UAE education, virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, you can put those filters in and see how everybody is using the technology. So, it's not theory, it's not academic, it's not futurist. It's literally about how organizations are using technology globally now. And so that's a lot around what I'd be talking about. And that's related to how I would suggest going about or being inspired to, or having the confidence to use these technologies in your organization.
Yeah, and your platform XRHQ actually literally tracks it, doesn't it? So how people are doing it, so you can just log in and see that. Can you just share maybe just one example of something that's happening on that platform at the moment, that would inspire educators? Is there something you can share with us today?
Sure. In fact, if it's okay, I'll give you 2 quick ones. Sure. Because they're related to 2 different technologies. So one of them is, and 2 different places as well. So one of them is a high school in Australia. It's called Newtown High School. And they wanted to enhance engagement and learning outcomes in STEM subjects, an area that students often struggle with complex concepts, and it's difficult to provide personalized support because they're quite large classes, a common problem. What they've done is they've implemented this solution called Maths Pathway, which uses machine learning to tailor mathematics education to each student's learning pace and style. So the platform continuously assesses student progress, adjusts the content accordingly, and the educator or the teacher is able to take on more of a facilitation role there to support them in the way that they prefer to learn. And what they found is implementing this led to improvements in student performance, increased engagement, higher test scores. And so there are a lot of benefits there. And that was at a high school in Australia. And then another example that I think is really powerful, and I got to see this firsthand. I visited Belgium about 9 months ago now. And in their Antwerp region, there is the Flemish government has deployed 1,200 virtual reality headsets, which they're using across 700 schools to empower over 150,000 students. And this for me is really, really powerful, because it tackles another misconception of the technology, which is that you can't scale this stuff. Particularly virtual reality when it comes to hardware like headsets. A lot of people believe, okay, we can't really take that to the nth level. And then here we have an organization that's deploying virtual reality to over 150,000 students. So those 2 examples are kind of give you a taste of the different things that appear on XRHQ that I find personally inspiring, and hopefully many do too.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to hear, because you read so much about these things, but actually to know it's being done rather than just kind of reading about it is really, really helpful to understand. Thank you. So it's such a powerful perspective on how technology can really empower learning. But obviously this kind of whole futurism, this transformation isn't just about technology. It is, as we've highlighted in our introduction, so much about people and well-being and inclusion. And if we have Dr. Salam, I'm not sure whether Dr. Salam has managed to stay on with us.
It doesn't look like
I'd
it,
love to have brought her in here, but she looks like our tech is failing us, future focused or not. But maybe Marisa, perhaps I could bring you in here, because obviously, as you alluded to in your introduction, you've inspired millions globally with your rapid transformational therapy and your I Am Enough movement. At GESS Dubai, you're going to be helping educators and students to sort of build on this and to build emotional strength and confidence. So can you sort of tell us a little bit about what you might be sort of dealing with in some of your sessions that you're going to be running? What are bringing your focuses?
I created the I Am Enough movement because as a therapist of actually 40 years, I realized that maybe 85% of my clients, the real core of their problem was not feeling enough. They might present with alcoholism or addictions, but the real issue was not feeling enough. And then I realized in the school system, I give a lot of assemblies on this not enoughness and how insidious it is and how, of course, it's not true, but children believe it. So one of the things we did with young children is we created a cheerleader. So we'd have these small children, we won an award, we'd have these small children literally design a cheerleader. We'd make some into soft toys. These were children between 5 and 9. And then they'd really imagine the cheerleader lived in their mind and was cheering for them. But it was, so they say things like, oh, he believes in me. When no one is cheering me, he cheers me. Or when I'm having a bad day, he tells me I'm doing my best. And I love the fact that for them, this cheerleader was a real person. It might have been a cartoon character. It may have been male or female. It may have been a whole platoon. But they really believed this cheerleader, gave them the confidence to estimate hard angles in maths and learn Arabic when they weren't used to it. And so, one of the rules of the mind is it can't hold conflicting beliefs or conflicting thoughts. And so when you're having this cheerleader that the children learn to have for the rest of their lives, they don't have a critic. There's a critic that says, you can't do this, you're not good enough, everyone is better than you. And small children feel that because they get compared so much. So when they have the cheerleader, they don't have the critic. And so many parents said, hey, I want this cheerleader. My kid is telling me all these great things, and I would like a cheerleader. So I love the fact that the small children, they learn to speak. We do something very simple. I'll just show you if you don't mind. Just let me grab this. So one of the things we do in assembly is we have them come up. All our stuff is really simple. And we have them make a wish. This is a genie, or make a wish. And they said, I wish I didn't have to eat lunch alone. I wish I wasn't terrible at math. I wish I was rubbish at sport. Okay, but that, when you're wishing for something that you can't have. So saying, okay, genie, I wish not to fail my exam. How can the genie make that real? He's going to have to give you a headache or a stomach ache, and now you can't fail the exam. But what about if you said, hey, genie, I wish to have a brilliant maths brain. I wish to be so friendly that I always have someone to have lunch with. I wish to be really good at sport. I'm learning to run and I'm doing my best. And they love that simple switch. Don't waste your wishes. So we have a lot of things that we do. One of them we do is we take like a $50 note, or what would it here be? 100 dirhams. We take one that's brand new and ironed and perfect. Then we take one and we put ketchup on it and cold coffee, and we screw it up and we stamp on it and we tear it up a bit. And then we say, which one has the most value? Because so many people here, they go to the mall. I was amazed that I see girls of 9 with Louis Vuitton backpacks, and they know what they are. So it's okay, so here's the perfect, here's the raggedy beaten up one. Which one has the most value? And they always say, well, they have the same. But one girl one year said, no, they don't. The beaten up one has more value. It's got a life. It's been around the block. It's much more interesting. And I love that at 9, this kid said, I prefer the raggedy one. It's got a story. And that's your story. You're not perfect. You might be a little afraid around the edges, but you have the same value as something perfect. So we do a lot of fun things that they really like. And one of the funnest we do is we take a piece of bread and we introduce olive oil to it. And then we take another piece of bread and we introduce fly spray and eye drops and say, look, the bread is your brain. Whatever you introduce, it has to go in. Yeah. The bread can't reject the fly spray, much as it would prefer to have the olive oil. But your brain cannot reject what you present to it. You've got to present it something better, will go in anyway. So we have a lot of really fun things We often have the shiny diamond. That's not me.
And those are so visual.
Sorry?
Yeah, they really stay with children, don't they? Those really, those are
we have
very
this-
visual,
we have
very
this massive-
stickable
I bought
things,
these
aren't
big diamonds on Amazon. They're like huge, obviously fake. And they have to stick all over them. Stickers, I'm not enough. I don't matter. I can't draw. I don't have nice things. And they realize that what they've done is they've hidden their own brilliance with all these negative thoughts. And they slowly take them off, but they have to replace them. So we're really teaching them with fun games. We're not in education, we're in emotional resilience. But they go home and say, hey, I taught my mum that. One of them said, I said to my mum, Mum, you need to think better thoughts. You need to tell yourself a better story. So I really love it that they get it so quickly. Another thing we do is we take massive masking tape and do a huge triangle on the floor. And we put 3 flip charts at each point. So there's 3 points. And the first flip chart is a thought, then a feeling, then a behavior. So the thought might be, I'm rubbish at creative writing. How do you feel? Well, I feel annoyed or sad. Or how do you act? Well, I cry or act out. But if you could flip the thought to, I'm learning to be really good at creative writing, or you know what, my gift is IT. Someone else can be good at creative writing. And then they run to a feeling, well, I feel better now and I feel confident. And the kid who said, I'm rubbish, said, I'm so smart, I ask for help. And I love that they're realizing themselves in real time. If they can just flip how they think, because it's like a ladder. I think a thought, my thought creates a feeling. My feeling dictates my behavior, which I justify by thinking the same thought. So we're teaching them it all starts with a thought. And if you change a thought or stop thinking a thought.
Yeah,
But
you
I
can
love yeah. And also we fit it very much into you can do this in a lesson. It can be an after school activity. It can be half an hour a week. But we're helping the school so you can really put this into the timetable. And they love it. I'm really proud of it because it makes such a difference to how children feel, how they feel inside. And we really want
changes the way they'll go forward with their
it's changing them for life. They go into the world of emotional resilience. They go into the world.
Yeah, can we just come to you now, because obviously you've been very much involved in how you're using technology in schools for years and years. I know that